Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Palette of the Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the latest issue of Warhammer 40k Imperium magazine. Now, as per usual with all these videos, if you like them, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course drop us a comment down below. Love hearing back from you guys, and it goes a massive way to help the channel too. Now, this week we're on the slightly delayed issue 64. Now, for me, the issue was delayed for delivery on Wednesday, so the shop where I get it from didn't have it, and I was unable to go fetch it yesterday, but I have got it today, and I'm pretty pleased with it because we get them Necron death marks. So, if you didn't build the Necron death marks in issue 25, I think, when we had this last sprue, you built the Immortals. This time around, we can build the death marks. If you did build the Immortals, now you can build your... if you did build your death marks first time around, you could build your Immortals this time. Your death marks this time. Yeah, one of the two. Anyway, but you can do the opposite of what you've already done. So, or you can have multiple of the same thing if you've bought multiple issues, for instance. That's one way about building up your army. So, really, really cool stuff, and a pretty damn good sprue as well. I must admit, I'm looking forward to getting going with those guys because they look pretty cool. Now, into the issue itself, we are greeted by the Necron death marks, the Necron sniper assassins. So, death marks are employed by Necron overlords to assassinate their enemies. Be they obstinate human generals or debased orc warlords, they infiltrate the battlefield using dimensional transitional technology, picking off their assigned targets before their presence is known. So of course they do have multiple different tools to their kind of arsenal. So they have a synaptic disintegrator, which is the name of their massive long-range weapon as well. So this devastating long-range weapon is designed not only to burn through enemy armour, but also to disintegrate the neural pathways of those it strikes, slaying them without so much as leaving a mark. The death marks use these weapons to engage and destroy enemy commanders and other high-value targets of opportunity. With the Necron's good old death marks as well, they have a different head to all the others, with that single kind of eye, which each death mark possesses a single large glowing optical sensor in the centre of their head. This hyper advanced sensor unit utilises occult cryptech technology to provide the death mark with excellent vision, allowing them to pick out their targets even in the pitch black of night or through the fire and smoke that coats the majority of battlefields. Few targets escape a death mark assassin's glare. And of course, as they're assassins, they do generally are a lot more patient in the way of hunters as well, so they can just hover around for days and just hang around to make sure that they get their target at the precise moment when it presents itself. So really, really good stuff, and a bit more lore about them as well. As per usual, you can do your battle record on the other page, so you can give them their unit designation, their legion commander, their cohort, their unit, even their glyph, and much, much more. So you can give them a bit more information, and even their battle damage as well, if you wanted to. But yeah, really, really cool stuff, and they're just a pretty cool unit. I must admit, I do really, really like them. Just this way it is. Then we find out more about one of the heroes of the good old Space Marines, Artemis, watch captain of Thalassa Prime. Born to the feral cannibalistic tribes of Posel, chapter planet of the Mortificers, Artemis is a decorated officer of the Death Watch. His life has encompassed bloodshed since his earliest days. Though the rage and fury of his youth has been tempered by experience, Artemis still fights with a ruthless intensity. So, the nomadic tribes amongst whom Artemis spent his earliest years were an ideal ground for the induction into the skull-flensing mortifactors. When the chapter's recruiters found him, he lay dying upon a mound of corpses, those of his kin who had attempted to devour him. So Artemis's killer instinct served the mortifactors well, but his aptitude for tracking and destroying Xenos brought him to the attention of the Death Watch. Artemis was swiftly selected by his chapter to fulfill their tithe to the Death Watch. So, bit of information about one of the other heroes from within the 41st millennium. Artemis seems pretty cool. I must admit, I've never heard of him before now, but yeah, seems like a pretty damn cool unit as well. Being part of a Death Watch is definitely a way of going through it. We also get information about Ortan Cassius as well, the Ultramarines Master of Sanctity. So now the highest ranking chaplain of the Ultramarines chapter, Ortan Cassius spent decades serving in the ranks of the Death Watch, and he is famed for his hatred of the Tyranids, and he has dedicated much of his life to their destruction. So, Ortan Cassius is the oldest living Space Marine in the Ultramarines chapter, and even remembers when some of the chapter's most ancient dreadnoughts still fought as warriors of flesh and blood. So, a bit more information about another hero from within the 41st Millennium and the Space Marines kind of cults. Really cool stuff. It's been interesting as well. It's nice to see and nice to have a bit of a read about this, especially an Ultramarine that has been around for a very, very long time. So pretty damn cool stuff there. Then we move on to one of the other war zones, the First Tyrannic War. We're finding out a bit of information between the Hive fleets of the Tyranids and good old Space Marines. So, Behemoth was the first Tyranid Hive fleet to be identified by the Imperium of Man. After destroying the outpost on Tyran Prime, the fleet swept through the settled space, carving a path towards the Ultramarines' stellar empire of Ultramar. The fleet appeared almost unstoppable. So, with the good old Tyranids, of course, being these ravaging monsters that do destroy everything in their path, they are pretty cool, and I do kind of like them. They remind me of the xenomorphs from good old Aliens and stuff like that. They have obviously ploughed through and devoured a lot and destroyed a lot as they go through, and this gives us a bit of information about them, including the battle for Macragge and much, much more. So really, really good stuff. If you like your lore to do with good old 40k, definitely worth a read. If you're not too sure about the Tyranids, so really, really cool stuff there. Then we've got a how to build guide. Obviously a lot of tiny parts with these Necrons, so it is going to be a little bit tougher to go through, and there are also going to be some parts that you're not going to be using, so keep an eye out for those. Those parts that you don't use, in all honesty, if you wanted to, you can use them as scattered terrain later on, so you can obviously clip them down and use them as discarded weapons, or even burnt out weapons and broken weapons from killed enemies to use on your bases and stuff like that if you wanted to. So adds a little bit of extra bits and pieces to your game, but otherwise paint them up very, very similar to how you already have when you go through your painting. Obviously they do have a slight difference, so they generally don't have a metallic head. They have that white head, which is very, very different. And they do also have that bright eye as well, so you can do that in kind of any colour you want, really. But you can make them look really, really cool, I'm absolutely sure of it. And yeah, you'll get some really, really good looking units out of it as well, but you can make them look pretty damn good. Now, obviously, if you're following the painting guide from the magazine, there are some paints you are missing. So these are not fully finished, these are nearly finished units. So they do have the eye unpainted, and they do have things like on parts of the weapons and the power balls on the back and everything like that are not finalised yet, and they will be finalised in coming issues, because we will get Tesseract Glow, which is a perfect paint and pigment for making that kind of greenish glow as well, so they can look really, really cool with that. So not too bad at all, so we can make them look pretty damn good in the meantime though, and definitely worth tabletop as well. Then we move on, we get some more information and rules to do with different factions, including our Space Marines and their deployment abilities. So your concealed positions, death from above, and even combat squads, and much, much more. And you can also utilise your tutorial for the combat squads and concealed positions as well on this page. We also get more information for the Necron rule sets as well, so the rules of the Necron tier. So obviously collating 3 key Necron rules. So you can use the Royal Court, Dimensional Translocation, and Living Metal. So, and this will obviously walk you through how to utilise these in your games and kind of get going with those as well. So it gives you a tutorial for Royal Court and Dimensional Translocation. And we also get our data sheet for the death marks. It's fairly small, but pretty damn cool. So now your Synaptic Disintegrator does have a massive, massive range of 36 inches. It is yeah, cool. That is a cool weapon. yeah, really good stuff, and pretty damn good to look at as well. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. And obviously you got your tutorial on how to utilize that synaptic disintegrator, and of course how they kind of walk with their armor piercing as well. So really good stuff. And then we move on. We have our battle. So our battle for the week, a rallying cry, and we are rallying the troops. So of course, utilizing your units, 25 power, going up against 2 deployment zones, and you are just using the 1 battle map for what we got in issue 58, and your terrain pieces as well. So your buildings and the good old generator as well. So the heliotrope reactor that we had, and you can get a really cool battle out of it. Really good stuff. It's pretty decent, and it looks like a pretty cool battle as well. So definitely worth having a blast at, and yeah, enjoy. That being said, on to next week. So next week we get more of our Vanguard. So we get the elite Vanguard troops. So we have our lieutenant. We have the sergeants as well. So we have more intercessors. We have another eliminator, and we have another suppressor. So we get more of those guys. Really cool stuff. That's the second of the 3 sprues. Issue 66 we get the third of the 3 sprues. So we have the same as last week really. So the same sprue from what we had with our single eliminator, single suppressor, and 3 intercessors as well. And that gives us the entirety of them Vanguard units, which are really cool. And yeah, we get going with them. So we have a lot of cool Space Marines to kind of look forward to as well. They look different, they look bulkier, they look heavier, and yeah, they just stand out a bit differently as well. So really good stuff. And yeah, I'm actually kind of looking forward to them, which is unusual for Space Marines, but yeah, really good stuff. Anyway, that is it from me for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week, hopefully on Wednesday and not on Friday. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye now.